To follow along with the written version of this pattern and download the interactive PDF, use the links on screen now, in the description below, or by going to clubcrochet.com/sun. Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet the sun. Not only a sun, but super cool sun with awesome sunglasses. Wow, how cool. This pattern is really cool because, I mean, just look at it. It's super cool. And it's very beginner friendly, which I'm really proud about. Actually, this pattern was one of those one and dones for me where this was the first one that I made, and it was just so perfect. First go around that I was just so proud of it that I had to go and record it right away. All right, well, if you like this pattern and want to find a whole series of patterns just like this, check out my series of space-themed patterns at clubcrochet.com/space. There's a whole bunch of them, from an geographically correct planet Earth pattern. I love this pattern. I'm so proud of it. To a bunch of different stars and moons, and even a UFO that you can actually make with an alien that kind of sits in the UFO. There's a few other patterns for this series of space-themed patterns coming out soon, so if you want to check out the ones currently out or the ones that might be out by the time you have crocheted this pattern, check them all out at clubcrochet.com/space. Okay, now a couple of different things to go through before we get crocheting. The first is that this is a very beginner-friendly pattern. I go very slowly, teaching every single stitch throughout the pattern. But if you're having a little bit more difficulty and want to go a little slower with learning how to crochet, check out my Crocheting 101 series at crocheting101.com. You can also join the Facebook group and Discord channel to ask for extra help. You can find links for that in the description below, or join our live crochet alongs that I do every single week, where I'll crochet something from our library live. You can use those to ask questions or just crochet along with me and hang out. To get notified for when we do a live crochet along, either join the email list by creating an account at clubcrochet.com, or click the subscribe button down below and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss it when we send out notifications when I'm live crocheting. Right now I'm crocheting live every Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you need extra help, there's also help in the comments, so go ahead and comment down below and ask extra help. I'm checking those comments out and replying if you have any questions. There's also a left-handed video and a right-handed version of this pattern, so make sure to watch the version that works with which hand you are. And then you can also use time codes. I have time codes that are in the description, at the bar at the base of this video, and in the PDF version of this pattern. You can use those to quickly jump around in this pattern, quickly jump to making the sunglasses, or making the corona along the edge, or even making the back or the front of the sun. You can use those again by using the links in the description of this video, or the bar at the base. Okay, well, I think that's everything I wanted to go over before we get crocheting. Really, thank you so much again for watching this pattern. Please, if you like it, make sure to like down below and subscribe to the channel. It's a great way to support the channel. And let's go ahead and talk about all the materials that we're going to need to crochet this pattern. For this pattern, you're going to need the following things. Let's start with the tools. We're going to be using a crochet hook, of course, in this pattern. I'm going to be using a size G 4mm crochet hook, just because it's my favorite size hook to use with the yarn we're going to be using, which is worsted weight cotton yarn. If you use a larger size yarn like chenille yarn or even blanket yarn, you're going to want to use a larger crochet hook. So if you have a bigger crochet hook, maybe even up to size J, K, something like that, whatever hook works best with the yarn we're using. But in this case, we're going to be using a size G 4mm. You also need a pair of scissors for cutting stuff, and a darning needle. You want to use a crimped end darning needle like this to help you get in and out of hard to reach stitches. There's not a lot of sewing together other than sewing the glasses on for this pattern, but I still like using a crimped end like this. You can get these needles, crochet hooks, all of the materials that I'm going to be showing in our shop, by the way, found in the link below. Speaking of, we're going to be pulling the materials from our brand new seasonal crochet kit, Space Crafts, which include all the materials to make all the patterns you saw in the beginning and a bunch of other alternative and patterns coming out later in the season. For this pattern, we're going to need the colors yellow and red of our Amigurumi cotton yarn, which is going to be our worsted weight cotton yarn for this pattern. So we're going to need these two colors, and we're also going to need a small amount of our black yarn. We won't need very much of this. This is just for the sunglasses, but a little bit goes a long way. You'll need some stuffing, of course, but we'll pull that from somewhere else. And we'll need some safety eyes. I'm going to be using size 8mm safety eyes in this pattern. If you want to get a seasonal crochet kit just like this, it comes with all the materials that you need to make all the things that you saw in the intro and a bunch of additional patterns that you have not seen yet. You can find links to this in the description. It's a great way to support this channel, and it even includes 3 months to Club Crochet, which gives you access to a whole library of tutorials, including all the ones that you saw in the intro and over 300 additional ones that you can see at clubcrochet.com. All right, well, without further ado, let's get hooking. We're going to start by making the front of our sun. Okay, we're going to start with our yellow yarn here, and we're going to start with something called the magic loop method. Now, if you've never made the magic loop method before, I have a video tutorial right here that shows my favorite way to do the magic loop and why I like some ways over others, but here is my favorite way in just a quick little tutorial, just so you can kind of get a crash course for it. For making the magic loop, you want to take the yarn facing downwards towards the ground. Then hold it together with your middle finger and thumb pinched together like that. I also kind of like to pull it together in between my ring and pinky finger. That's just to hold it into place a little bit better. Now, going around your index finger and middle finger 2 times, we're looking to create an X on the front with your facing towards you, and 2 parallel lines away from you like this. See how we got 2 lines parallel, 2 lines crossed. We're going to take this end attached to the ball and place it in between your ring and pinky finger with the tail end, just to keep everything in place, and then have the back of your hand facing you. We can grab our crochet hook. Now with your crochet hook, you want to go under this first bar here, and then hook onto the second one like this. Pull that second bar under the first one and then loop it around like so to create a little loop on the end of your crochet hook. Now going over this first bar, we're going to hook onto the second one again. The easiest way to do that is to guide the yarn over your crochet hook using your finger like this. So guide it over the crochet hook. Then once it's on the crochet hook, we want to pull it through the loop on the hook. To do that, the easiest way I find is to twist the crochet hook so that it lines up better with the hole, and then scoop it under the hole like that to really make sure that all the threads are through that loop. Okay, once you've done that, you have created your magic loop and you can pull it off of your fingers. Everything should stay together. And now what's really cool about the magic loop is that you can pull this tail end and it'll close the magic loop up. We're going to be working our first round of stitches into the center of this magic loop. Okay, speaking of, let's go ahead and get started. For round 1 of our sun, we're going to start by doing 6 single crochets into the center of the magic loop. This is very normal for amigurumi in general. To do a single crochet, all you need to do is take your crochet hook and go into the stitch. In this case, the magic loop itself is going to be considered our stitch, but in round 2, we're going to be working into a different spot, but just wait for round 2, we'll get there in a second. We're going to take our crochet hook, going into the center of the magic loop like this, and then yarn over with the end attached to the ball of yarn, like that. Then we're going to pull that under the stitch, in this case, just the loop itself. Now going over the stitch, we're going to yarn over again with the end attached to the ball and pull it through the 2 loops on the hook. The same thing here with the magic loop. You want to twist it so that it lines up with the holes, and then really scoop it under to get under both of those stitches simultaneously like that. That's going to be called a single crochet, and our pattern is going to be made almost entirely with this stitch. We're going to use some different stitches when it comes to the corona outside the edge of the sun, but the majority of this pattern is going to be made with single crochets just like that. For this first round, we want to make 6 of those single crochets into this magic loop. So we just made our first one. Let's go ahead and do another one. We're going to go into the stitch, aka the magic loop, yarn over with the end attached to the ball, and pull it under the stitch like so. Going over the stitch, yarn over again with the end attached to the ball, twist to line up with the holes, and then scoop it through to really make sure you're under both of those stitches. That's going to be our second single crochet. It's easiest to count your single crochets by looking at where this loop is coming out and count the V's. So there we got 1 V and 2 V's to count 2 single crochets made. Again, we want 6 of those single crochets. So for our third stitch, we're going to do the same thing, into the stitch, yarn over and pull it through, over the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. There's 1, 2, and 3. Here's our 4th single crochet. And then one more into the magic loop will be our 5th single crochet. And again, we want 6. So we want one final one. So go into the magic loop, yarn over and pull it through. Then going over the magic loop, yarn over again and pull through 2 like so. And now you should have 6 single crochets. Again, to count the V's where this loop is coming out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's going to be all the stitches in round 1. Now before we pull this magic loop to close the hole up, we want to grab a yarn in a different color that we're going to use as a stitch marker. Now, honestly, you don't need very much yarn. This is actually probably way more than I'm gonna need, but we're gonna be using this throughout the pattern. In fact, you know what? This is like way more than we're gonna need. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it closer like this. This is just gonna be used to keep track of the ends of the rounds. So what we wanna do is take the end and place it right into the center of this magic loop like this. And then I'm gonna hold it down with my index finger here. And then we're gonna pull this tail end right here, and it's gonna pull the magic loop nice and tight around that end of the yarn and close up our hole. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to take this tail end and fold it over the end of our piece like this and just hold it in place like that. Try not to pull it too far so that the end doesn't come out, but we just want to fold it over to keep our place tracked, the end of the rounds tracked as we go. I always kind of like to hold it into my hand with the crochet hook just to keep it out of the way from my stitches, but that is going to be how to add the magic loop. And that's also going to be the end of round 1. Okay, so for round 2, we want to work into our stitches and do something called an increase in every single stitch around. An increase simply just means 2 single crochets into the same stitch. Now this round, however, we're not going to be working into the center of the magic loop, but we're going to be working into the stitches that we made in round 1. This pattern is going to be worked in the round without turning. That basically just means that we're going to keep working around in a spiral. We never have to turn around. We're just going to keep going around over and over in a circle. As we go around each stitch, we want to work under both loops, which basically means both of these parts of the V's that we were counting to use as our counting stitches. We want to get our crochet hook under this one right here. This one's going to be called the front loop because it's closest to you. And this loop back here is going to be called the back loop because it's furthest away from you. We want to get under both the front loop and the back loop simultaneously for all of the stitches in the round. In every single stitch here, we're going to work 2 single crochets into that same exact stitch. It's a little easier to put a needle into where you want the crochet hook to be first if you're a complete beginner, just to get you an idea of exactly where the crochet hook is going to go. Once you know exactly where the crochet hook is going to go, we're going to take our crochet hook, and I like to place it right where it's going to start, and then use my 2 index fingers to kind of wiggle my piece over the crochet hook to really make sure it's under all the stitches there. Just for the first stitch, it's a little difficult to get into that first stitch. Once you're in that first stitch, however, all we need to do is yarn over and pull it under that stitch. Again, you want to scoop it. You want to twist it so that it lines up and scoop it under like that to really make sure that all the threads are under all the threads of the stitch. Once you have that pulled through, that's the first half of our single crochet. We're going to yarn over again and pull through the 2 loops on the hook. Now, before I do that to finish up the single crochet, we want to grab our tail end, our yellow tail end here from the very beginning of our piece, and just place it in between the 2 loops on the hook and the one attached to the ball. We're going to ignore this as we go and work around it for our entire round here, and that's just going to help to keep the magic loop tightened and closed so it never comes undone. Once we have it over the between the 2 loops on the hook and the end attached to the ball, we can yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it through the 2 loops on our hook to finish our first single crochet, just like that. All right, so that's going to be the first single crochet done. Now we want to do another single crochet into the same exact place as we put our first single crochet. The easiest way to find that is if you see this little V here, that's going to point you perfectly to where that stitch was that it worked into. So right here is going to be that same stitch that we just worked into. All we need to do now is take our crochet hook, place it right where that V is pointing right here, and then do the same thing, wiggle the crochet over the hook, then yarn over with the end attached to the ball, twist and scoop it under like that, and then yarn over again and pull through 2 to finish up our second single crochet of our first increase stitch. That is going to be an increase, just 2 single crochets into the same spot. We want to do that for every single stitch around that we made in round 1. So now we can work into our next stitch, which is going to be right here, and do 2 more single crochets to make our second increase stitch. So we're going to take, I always like to place my tail end right here over where that is. Take our crochet hook, go right in between those 2 stitches and kind of push it through. Yarn over with the end attached to the ball, and pull it through that stitch, and then going over the stitch, yarn over again, and pull through 2 to finish that third single crochet and the first single crochet of our second increase. I know that sounds kind of confusing, but that's going to be the first stitch of our second increase. Let's do another increase into that same stitch by following that V, placing our crochet hook right where that goes, yarn over again, pulling it through the stitch, then going over the stitch, yarn over, and pull through 2 like that to finish our second increase up. Now because we're going to do an increase into every stitch around, I'll go ahead and get started on our third increase here. And I'll start to speed up now. So there's our first single crochet of our third increase and our fourth single crochet of our third increase. And because we're doing an increase into every stitch around, and we had 6 stitches in round 1, that's going to increase our stitch count up from 6 to 12 because we're putting 2 stitches into every stitch from round 1. And that's kind of how this pattern works up. As we make an increase, it's going to add 1 additional stitch to the end of our stitch count. Okay, and this is going to be actually my last stitch here. Let's go ahead. We've got some of this tail end of the blue poking through. So we're going to do 1 more into this stitch for our last single crochet, which should be our 12th single crochet. You can yarn over and pull through both, just like that. And that should be the end of round 2. Okay, now we can actually cut this tail end of our yellow. We don't need it anymore, and it's just going to get in our way. So we're going to place this to the side and use it as stuffing later on. We'll pull that to the side, and we're going to take our tail end, or our stitch marker here, and just fold it completely over just like that, and fold it to the side like so. We're going to ignore it as we go into round 3. Again, in round 2, if you want to count your stitches, you just want to count starting from where this loop is coming out and counting the V's all the way around. There should be 12 with this stitch right here, right after where the stitch marker is, being your first stitch. Okay, so now we're on to round 3. For round 3, we just want to do a single crochet into our first stitch. Just 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then an increase into the next stitch, meaning 2 single crochets into stitch number 2. So 1 into the first and 2 into the second. Then we'll repeat that process of doing 1 in the first and 2 in the second 6 times around all the way until we get to the end of the round. That's going to bring our stitch count up from 12 stitches, which is our current stitch count, up to 18 stitches, which is going to be the stitch count at the end of round 3. So we'll go ahead and get that started. We're going to start into our first stitch right here and do 1 single crochet into our first stitch of round 3, and then 2 into the next one. So we're going to go into the next stitch over, which again, if you want to find where that last stitch was made, just follow that V. It'll point you directly into that same stitch, but we don't want to work into that one. We want to work into the next one right here. So we're going to go into that next stitch right here and do 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So there's 1 and 2 into that same exact stitch. And you can see how that's going to be 3 stitches because we got 1, 2, and 3 in the same stitch. And by repeating that 6 times around, it should bring us up to 18. So let's go ahead and do our second repeat here. 1 single crochet into our first stitch right here, and then 2 into the next stitch right here. There's, oops, there we go. 1 and 2 into that same stitch. All right, let's keep repeating that around. Here's our third repeat, 1 single crochet in the first, and then 2, 1 and 2 into the next. 1 single crochet into the first, and then 2 into the next. And again, if you want to count your stitches, you should end up at 18. So there's 1 in the first, and then 1 and 2 into the next. 1 into the first, and then our final stitch right here is going to be 1, and then 1 more into the same stitch, is 2, just like that. All right, let's pull our yarn up a little bit, pull the stitch marker up, and that's going to be the end of round 3. Okay, now we're going to be on to round 4, and you're going to really start to see where the repeat is. Every few rounds, we're going to be increasing it up bigger and bigger by 6 stitches around, just like how we did in this last round. So in round 3, we did 1 single crochet in the first and an increase into the next. But now that we're on to round 4, we're going to be doing 2 single crochets, 1 into each stitch for 2 stitches, and then 1 increase after that, and then repeat that 6 times around. This is going to bring your stitch count up from 18, which is our current stitch count, up to 24 at the end of round 4. So notice how I pulled my stitch marker up. We're going to go ahead and keep continuing on here. We're going to do a single crochet into the first stitch right here, so right after where that stitch marker is. Another single crochet into the next stitch marker right here, just like that, 1 and 2, and then 2 single crochets into the third stitch right here. So there's 1 into that stitch, and then into the same stitch by following where that V is to find that same stitch. There's 2. So there's 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 are in the same stitch. Then we're going to repeat that process 6 times around. So let's do our second repeat. Again, that's 1 and 2, and then an increase after it right here, 3 and 4. Okay, we're just going to keep doing that repeat all the way around. And this is going to be how the repeats work in rounds where we're increasing. We're going to continually increase in our piece. We'll have one more round of, we'll have one more round of increasing after this to really solidify how the increase rounds are. But you'll kind of notice that every round that we're increasing, we're making one more stitch between increasing so that it gets bigger and bigger as we go around. And then every few rounds, we're just going to do single crochets into every stitch. But that's going to be the repeat for this pattern when it comes to increasing. And again, you're going to see, I think you'll get the repeat pretty quick in just a moment. Okay. That's going to be the end of round 4. Again, if you want to count your stitches around after where this loop is coming out, you should have 24 stitches around. We're going to pull our stitch marker up just like this and continue on to round 5. For round 5, this repeat is going to continue. We're going to do 3 single crochets now and then an increase into our 4th stitch. We'll repeat that process of doing 3 single crochets and then 1 increase 6 times around to get all the way to the end of our piece and increase our stitch count up from 24, which is our current stitch count, up to 30 stitches around, which is going to be the stitch count after this. So let's go ahead and get started right here. We want 3 single crochets. There's 1, 2, and 3 single crochets, and then 1 increase after it right here will be 1 and 2 into the same stitch. All right, that's going to be our repeat all the way around. So let's go ahead and do another repeat of that. 1, 2, and 3, and then our increase right here. Okay, and as I continue that repeat around, that pattern of adding an additional single crochet between increases is going to be what the pattern is for every round where we're increasing. And in the front of our sun here, there's going to be quite a lot of these rounds of increasing. We're going to basically end up increasing up to 48 stitches around eventually. So let's go 1, 2, 3, and then another increase right here. And this is going to be our last round of increasing for a second because we're going to do a round of single crochets after this. But you'll see after our next round, we're going to increase up again by doing 4 single crochets and then an increase. So you'll really start to see the repeat going. But first we need to get to a good size to do single crochets. All right, so this is going to be our last stitch right here. That's going to be 29 and 30. So you should have 30 stitches around. We'll pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 6. For round 6, we're going to just do a single crochet into every single stitch around. That's it. Just 1 single crochet for every stitch around. There still should be 30 stitches by the end of round 6. So we're just going to go into our first stitch right here, just like that, and just do a single crochet into every single stitch. There's no need to do repeats of increasing or anything like that. Just one single crochet per stitch for 30 stitches around. And hey, if you like what's going on here and you like this video, please like it down below and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I come out with video tutorials just like this all the time. We also have a full library of video tutorials like this. You can find that by going to clubcrochet.com. And if you become a member, you'll have access to the entire library of tutorials. In fact, if you're watching this pattern right now, that probably means that you've purchased our crochet kit or you've purchased this pattern. If you would like to, you can become a member. You can even try getting a free trial to see if it's something you're interested in, and get access to a whole library of tutorials like the patterns that I showed in the beginning of this video tutorial. We have a whole bunch of them. I add new ones to our library every single week. So there's a lot of patterns, and I do video tutorials just like this for all of them. All right, so that's going to be the end of round 6. We'll pull our stitch marker up here, and now we're going to start to kind of find the repeat going. We're going to continue on to round 7. Round 7 is going to be 4 single crochets and then our increased stitch, repeated 6 times around to go up from 30 stitches, our current stitch count, up to 36 stitches around. So that's 4 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and 4 single crochets, and then 1 increase right here, 1 and 2, just like that. And we're just going to keep doing that repeat all the way around to get up to 36 stitches around. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then another increase, 1 and 2, just like that. All right, now that we've kind of got this repeat going, what I'm going to start doing in these rounds is I'll start the rounds and then I'll come back at the end of the round to show you how it's all finished up and then continue on to the next round. So we're going to start doing like kind of cuts in between these rounds, just so I don't have this video tutorial being ridiculously long. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing down below. It's a great way to support this channel, and please consider a membership on the website. Okay, well, actually, I guess now we'll just finish this round up since we're so close. But you'll kind of see I'm going to start to cut in between rounds, just to make it a little bit quicker of a video tutorial, because I know as we go through these tutorials, they just get longer and longer in each of these rounds. And now that I've showed you the basics, I don't think it's that necessary. If you have any questions as we go, though, please let me know in the comments down below, or going to the Discord channel or Facebook group to reach out and ask for help. Okay, so that's going to be the end of round 7. You should now have 36 stitches around. Now we're on to round 8. For round 8, we're just doing a single crochet into every single stitch around. Again, you should have 36 stitches per round. So now we're just going to get to the part where we're just doing single crochets in every stitch around. So I'll be back in just a moment. Again, you should have 36 stitches around, and we're just going to do a single crochet into every single stitch. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 8. We'll pull our stitch marker up now. Again, you should have 36 stitches around, and we can continue on to round 9. For round 9, we're going to do 5 single crochets and then an increase, and repeat that process 6 times around. This will bring your stitch count up from 36 up to 42 stitches around. So again, that's going to be 5 single crochets. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 single crochets, and then an increase into the next right here, 1 and 2 into that same stitch. That's going to be your repeat. We're going to repeat that all the way around. This should bring your stitch count again up to 42 stitches around. So we'll just keep doing that repeat around. 5 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then our increase right here, 1 and 2 into the same stitch. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 9. You should have 42 stitches around. We'll pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 10. For round 10, we just want to do a single crochet into every single stitch around, just 1 single crochet per stitch. You still should have 42 stitches by the end of this round, so this is a good opportunity for you to count your stitches and make sure you are on count as you go. All right, well, I'll be back in just a moment as I do a single crochet into every single stitch all the way around. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 10. You should have 42 stitches around now. Pull our stitch marker up, and we'll continue on to round 11. For round 11, we're going to increase it up yet again. To do that, this is actually going to be the last round of increasing it up to be bigger. To do that, we're going to do 6 single crochets and then 1 increase, repeated 6 times around, to go up from 42 stitches around, which is our current stitch count, up to 48 stitches around. So we're going to go into our next stitch right here and do 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 single crochets, and then 1 increase after it right here. 1 and 2, just like that. We're going to repeat that all the way around. All right, and I'll be back in just a moment as we continue these repeats of 6 single crochets and then 1 increase to get our stitch count up to 48 stitches. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 11. You should have 48 stitches. We'll pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 12. For round 12, we got another round of just single crochets into every single stitch around. So we're just going to go into each stitch all the way around and just do 1 single crochet per stitch. All the way around, you still should have 48 stitches by the end of this round. In fact, you're going to have 48 stitches for the next few rounds. So if you want to make sure that you keep your stitch count, just make sure that there's 48 stitches per round. All right, well, I'll be back in just a moment as I do this round of single crochets. Okay, this is going to be the end of round 12, a round of just single crochets all the way around. We'll pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 13. Now, round 13 is where we're going to start to differ from the previous rounds. We're still going to do a single crochet into every stitch around, but this round, instead of working into both loops, we're only going to work into the back loop only. Now, again, I said this earlier on, I think in the start of our pattern, but each round we've been working under both loops just like this. That's how we normally do a single crochet. This is under both loops. There is a front loop that's going to be the one closest to you, and a back loop, which is going to be the loop furthest away from you. In this round, we only want to work into the back loops only, this loop furthest away from you. You don't want to work under both loops. You don't want to work under the front loop. You only want to work onto the back loop, the one furthest away from you. The reason we're going to do this is because it's going to leave all these front loops unused throughout this entire round. And then later on in the pattern, we're going to add the corona, like, what's it called? Like the little points around the edge of the sun by working into these front loops only to add those at the end of the pattern. Okay, so again, we want to work into the back loops only, which is going to be this loop furthest away from you. And we're just going to do a single crochet into every single one of these back loops only. So there's going to be your first one. There's 1 into that first stitch. Notice how it's under that back loop only, leaving that front loop open for later. Here's 2. Kind of see how it's starting to work up. It's going to become more and more clear as we do more stitches. And all you need to do really to get under that back loop only is instead of going like this and poking up, I like to go above that right here where the center of that V is and kind of poke down like that to really make sure you're under that back loop only. And that's it. We're just going to do that for every single stitch around, 1 single crochet for every single back loop only, all the way around. And you still should have 48 stitches by the end of this round. So I'll be back in just a moment. We're just going to keep doing that single crochet into the front loop or into the back loop only. You can really see how it's creating this little line that we're going to work with later on. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 13, where we worked into the back loops only. We're going to pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 14 now. Now for round 14, we want another round of just single crochets into both loops. So now we want to work back into both loops. We don't need to only work into the back loops only. So we're going to go into both loops so that we're under 2 at the same time. And and we're just going to do a single crochet into every single one. There still, again, should be 48 stitches all the way around. So you shouldn't have lost a stitch or gained a stitch at any point. If you did, that means you either added a stitch by doing an increase by accident or removed a stitch by skipping a stitch by accident. So really make sure you're on the right stitch count, and this time just do a single crochet into every stitch around, working under both loops. You can kind of see how it's creating this little gap in between this front loop only. After this round, we're going to work into that back loop only again to create another stripe of these front loops only to work with later on when we make the corona. Just heads up. So yeah, that's just my little heads up. All right, well, I'm going to continue this round, round 14, continuing just doing single crochets into every stitch, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 14, our round of just single crochets all the way around. We'll pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 15. For round 15, we're going to do another round working into the back loops only. And again, the back loops only means the loop furthest away from you right here. So if we were normally working under both loops, we only want to work under the back loop just like this, all the way around. That's going to help us keep track all the way around so that we keep this front loop open to use for our corona. So we're going to work under the back loops only for this entire round. And it's still just a single crochet into every stitch around. You're just working under the back loops instead of under both loops. So we're just going to keep doing that around. You still should have 48 stitches, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, and it's going to be the last stitch of round 15. We're going to pull our stitch, or I'm going to loop out just like this, just to keep it so it doesn't come out undone. And we're going to start to add our face now. The first thing I want to do, though, is I want to get this stitch marker pulled out. Not all the way, but just pulled out a little bit so that we have some stitches to work with for the face so that these stitch markers aren't in the way. You can do this with your crochet hook by just grabbing onto that yarn like this, or you could do it with your needle like this, by grabbing onto it with your needle and just pulling it out one stitch at a time. I really just like to add one stitch at a time. Once you're a few away, let's go into this one right here, like that. I can pull out from here just to pull these, just to pull it slightly out like that. We don't need to pull it all the way out, just a little bit to give us room to work with on the front. We also notice that the hole right here is just slightly bigger than we want it to be. I'm gonna pull this tail end here and it should close that hole up just a little bit. Just pull it nice and tight like that and see how it closed it up just a little bit. We can kind of stretch it a little bit more too so that it's not too pointy. Okay, next up we want to add the face of our sun. Now this is actually pretty easy to do for this pattern. It's just going to be two eyes and a smile. First up, let's do the eyes. I have a very specific spot that I put the eyes that I really liked in my first sun, and to do that, I did it into round 3, stitches number 6 and 15. This probably would have been nice to use the stitch markers for, to be completely honest, and I wish that I thought about that before I pulled them out, but I didn't. So we're gonna go right here. The very center is gonna be stitch number 0. Okay, we're going to count our way up, so this is going to be, this is going to be round number 0. So 0, this is round number 1, the end of round number 1, round number 2, and round number 3. This is going to be the end of round number 3. So we want to go to the end of round number 2, which is going to be right here, and we're going to count 6 stitches up. The reason I know it's the end of round number 2, by the way, is because I'm following where these stitch markers go and following them up along the piece. But again, this would have been easier if I kept my stitch marker. Okay, so this is going to be stitch number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's going to be right here for our first eye. I'm going to be using 8mm eyes in this pattern, right into that stitch right there. Really, you can do it in any of the stitches that you want. This is just exactly where I really liked the eyes on my first time that I made this, so I just kind of want to repeat that. Okay, so if that was stitch number 6, we have stitch number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So that stitch will be where we want our second eye. Oops. There we go. Just going to place it in there, just like that. And that's going to add our eyes in there. And we can go ahead and use the backs right here and just lock those eyes into place with a really satisfying click. It kind of sounds like I'm cracking my back. Crack. There we go. All right. Next up, we want to add just a really simple smile onto the bottom of our piece now. You can use either black thread or you can use black yarn for this. Let's go ahead. I'm going to use black yarn just so I can show you how to use black yarn if you don't have black thread. So we're just going to cut a little bit of black yarn, not very much at all, and we're going to thread this black yarn into the different threads of it. I really like using cotton for this because you can do this, but you can kind of see how if you pull it apart here, it'll pull the yarn apart, and we can use just one of these halves of the yarn to add our smile. Now, a smile for this pattern specifically, I like to add very easily. I don't like to make this one as complicated as I usually make smiles, but we're just going to thread it onto the end of our needle, just like this. And I kind of like to have the smile slightly crooked off the side in around round 1, actually. So really early on in our piece. Here, let me show you on our finished piece so you can kind of see what it looks like. Let's pull these glasses up a little bit so you can kind of see them. So notice how it kind of in between round 1 and round 2, this first increase that we made in round 2, I'm kind of working around that to give it just a very sly smile. Now, of course, you can make a really big smile. You can make a bunch of different faces. If you want to find a video tutorial where I make a bunch of different kinds of face options, check out the link right here in the description or by going to clubcrochet.com/mouth. But this is the way I add this really, really sly, simple smile that looks really good with the sunglasses especially. To do that, we're just going to go and find our first increase in round 2. That's going to be this stitch right here. And we're going to go around right here is going to be your first increase in round 2. So we're going to go from right here to right here. So it's slightly off center, but still has a little bit of a curve to it. We're going to come out from the inside into this stitch a little closer to our left eye. That's technically our left eye because if you have it this way. And we're going to go 2 stitches over, 1, 2, close to the middle, and then straight down from that stitch right there. And if you pull it, see, it kind of just makes its way into a smile on its own. You don't really need to do any kind of like fancy stuff there. Normally, I kind of go through the center right here and pull it down so that it pulls it into more of a curve, but because of the way the stitches are made in this round, it kind of pulls its way into a sly little curve all on its own. So it makes it really easy to add a smile to this pattern. We're just going to take these 2 ends on the inside and double knot them. You can cut this knot really close after you've double knotted, but you actually don't really need to. You can kind of leave it loose and on the inside because we're just going to have to add stuffing later on anyhow. But if you want to make sure, first off, you do want to pull this tight. You don't want it so tight that it's like pulling everything into together, but you do want it tight enough to keep it as a smile. So we're just going to kind of pull that down slightly, and that's going to be our really sly, simple smile, just like that. Okay, and we're just going to go, and you know what? I will cut it close. We'll add this with our other threads from this pattern to the side that we'll use for stuffing later on, but I think that looks pretty good right there. Okay, so that's going to be how to add the face, and now we can continue on and continue to the back of our piece. We don't need to do the corona until we finish up this entire piece, so we kind of sew it closed and then we add the outside just to make things a little bit easier for the pattern. So we're just going to get our hook back into it, pull our stitch marker up like that, and we can continue on to round 16. For round 16, it's just a round of single crochets into every single stitch around, working under both loops. So you don't have to work under the front loop or the back loop only. You can just work under both loops and just do another round of single crochets. This is going to be another round of 48 stitches around, just 1 single crochet per round all the way around. So I'll be back in just a moment as I work this round of single crochets. But before I go, again, if you like this video, here's another plea. Please like down below, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to join our email list so you get notified when we come out with new videos or new live streams, we do a live crochet along every single week, you can join our email list by simply creating an account at clubcrochet.com. You can create a free account. It does give you access to a bunch of patterns on our website, but it also gives you, it also adds you to our email newsletter, which of course you can cancel the newsletter at any time, but it is a good way to stay notified from when we come out with new patterns. Okay, well, I'll finish up this round. I'll be back in just a moment. I'm over halfway done already though. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 16. We'll pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 17. Now, round 17 is where we're going to start to do our decreasing. Now, I do have very specific ways that I like to decrease. That's going to be called the invisible decrease, which is what I'm going to be showing you in this pattern. However, if you have a different way to decrease that you like more than the invisible decrease, that totally works in this pattern. It's totally going to work. But if you want to check out a video tutorial where I show you a few different ways to decrease, check out the link right here or in the description, or by going to clubcrochet.com/decrease. It'll show you a few different options for decreasing and why I use one way over another. That being said, we're going to be using the invisible decrease in this pattern, and I'll show you when we get there. Okay, now for round 17, we're basically going to be doing the repeat that we did when we were increasing up. So remember when, I think it was round, let me look on the pattern real quick, round 11, where we did 6 single crochets and then we increased it up. That's going to be right around here. We're going to basically do the same thing, but instead of an increase, we're going to do a decrease, which is going to be an invisible decrease. So we're going to do 6 single crochets and then 1 invisible decrease, repeating that process 6 times around. This will bring your stitch count down from 48 stitches back down to 42 stitches. So you're going to kind of see how we're going to start to close it up slowly to kind of mimic the front of this in the back, so it creates a big circle. All right, so let's get to our first decrease so I can show you how to do that. We're going to do 6 single crochets first though to get into position. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 single crochets, just like that, and then 1 invisible decrease. Now for an invisible decrease, we're going to work only into the front loops of the next 2 stitches simultaneously. So remember how we worked only in the back loop, this loop furthest away from us here? In this round, we're going to work only into the front loop closest to us right here. So we're going to work under this front loop and this second front loop simultaneously. So both of these front loops at the same time, and then we're just going to do a single crochet into those front loops. Now this is actually way easier than it looks or it sounds to do. All you need to do is take your crochet hook and place it right under where that first front loop is and poke it straight up so you're only under one of those loops. Then you want to flip your crochet hook around so that it's under the second front loop just like this, and poke it up the second front loop like that. Once you're under both of those front loops simultaneously, we can yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it under those 2 front loops. I really like to twist the crochet hook and scoop it just like how we were doing originally to really make sure you're under those loops. It can be kind of hard to do that. Once you're under both of those loops, you have 2 loops on the hook and 1 attached to the ball. You can yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it through the 2 loops just like a regular single crochet, like so. And that's going to create an invisible decrease. Okay, so we want to do that 6 times around, where we're doing 6 single crochets, 1 invisible decrease. The next stitch after the first invisible decrease that you make can be a little hard to see. You can kind of see it right here. We're going to work under both loops of this stitch to continue our repeat around of 6 single crochets and then an invisible decrease, but it kind of looks like this is our next stitch, but it's not. The easiest way to do that, to look at it, is kind of, you can kind of see how this stitch right here, it's like kind of hard to see where this is getting pulled up, so it's going to be this stitch right next to it. If you're having a really difficult time with that, just take it really slow and count your stitches. Okay, so we're going to work under both loops of the next stitch over right here to continue our repeat, and we're going to do our 6 single crochets. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 single crochets, and then our 2 front loops simultaneously going up from the bottom. We got front loop only, and then here's our second one, front loop only, yarn over and pull through both, and then yarn over and pull through 2 to finish our invisible decrease. And that's the repeat all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this repeat. We're on our 3rd repeat here, and I'll continue doing 6 single crochets and then 1 invisible decrease all the way around, which again is going to pull our stitch count down from 48 to 42. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 single crochets, and then our invisible decrease by going front loop, and then single crochet. All right, I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so that's going to be the end of round 17. We're going to pull our stitch marker up here, continue on to round 18. Now round 18 is a nice break. We're just going to do a single crochet into every stitch around. But this round, you should have less stitches. So you should have 42 stitches in this round because you decreased in your last round back down to 42. Now you still should have 42 stitches around. So we're just going to do a round of just single crochets for 42 stitches around. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 18 where we did just a single crochet all the way around. We'll pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 19. Now round 19, you're going to start to see that repeat going backwards. So instead of increasing, we're starting to decrease down. And this time we're going to do 5 single crochets and then 1 invisible decrease 6 times around to pull our stitch count down from 42, which is our current stitch count, down to 36 stitches around. So let's go ahead and do that. 5 single crochets to get started. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 single crochets. And then our invisible decrease. So we go up from the bottom, we do front loop only, and then front loop only like that. Then yarn over and pull through both front loops, then yarn over again and pull through 2, just like that. We're going to repeat that process 6 times around. So let's go do our second repeat. 5 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then our invisible decrease. Front loop only, and then our single crochet. All right, now I'll keep repeating this around. Again, we should end up at 36 stitches by the end of round 19 here. Oopsies. We threaded that yarn because I wasn't paying attention. By the way, what that means when I say we threaded that yarn, it basically means that we're pulling under only part of the stitch. So if we're like doing it like this, here I'll kind of do it on purpose. It's kind of hard to do it on purpose sometimes, but like that. That's called threading the yarn. So you're pulling half of the stitches through. So you don't want to do that. You want to really make sure you're under all those stitches and then twisting and pulling through to really make sure you get all those stitches pulled under. Okay, well, I'll keep doing this repeat. I'll be back in just a moment. That's going to be the end of round 19, or 36 stitches around. We'll pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 20. For round 20, just another round of just single crochets into every single stitch around. So just keep doing a single crochet all the way around. You still should have 36 stitches around. And yeah, nice and easy round of just single crocheting all the way around for 36 stitches. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 20. Pull our stitch marker up, and we'll continue on now to round 21. For round 21, we're decreasing it down yet again to go down from 36 stitches, which is our current stitch count, down to 30. To do that, you might know the repeat. The repeat's going to be 4 single crochets and then 1 invisible decrease repeated 6 times around. So let's go ahead and get that started. 4 single crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 single crochets, and then 1 invisible decrease by going under the front loops only. There's 1 and 2, and then single crocheting after that. We're going to repeat that 6 times around to again bring us down from 36 stitches down to 30 stitches around. So by the end of round 21 here, we should have only 30 stitches around. There's our second invisible decrease. And I'll go ahead and keep doing this repeat, and I'll be back in just a moment. And that's going to be the end of round 21. Pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 22. All right, round 22 is going to be our last round of just single crochets all the way around. So just one more round of just single crochets working under both loops all the way around. You still should have 30 stitches around because of our last round of decreasing. So you should have 30 stitches, and we'll just keep doing 30 single crochets all the way around till we get to the end of this round. After this round, we're going to start continuously doing our repeat of decreasing until our piece gets smaller and smaller and we can stuff it and sew it closed. So just so you know, this is our last round of just single crochets. This is going to be the end of round 22. You should have 30 stitches around. pull our stitch marker up just like this, and continue on to round 23. For round 23, we're decreasing down yet again. To do that, we're going to do 3 single crochets and then 1 invisible decrease, repeating that process 6 times around to go down to 24 stitches. So we're going to do 1, 2, and 3 single crochets, and then 1 invisible decrease by going front loop and single crochet. So we're just keep doing this repeat all the way around to go down. And you kind of see it's getting smaller and smaller. So 1, 2, and 3, and then invisible decrease. And we're already almost halfway done with this round. So I think this is going to be where I stop cutting and just keep crocheting with you. Hey, I hope you're having a great day, by the way. I hope you are enjoying this crochet pattern and that you like it and you think it's cool. I really appreciate you crocheting along with me. It means a lot. A lot of times I don't think people watch patterns up to this point. So if you are watching, let me know in the comments. Comment down below with something that I know that only we know. So let's go with, comment with an emoji of, I don't know, a UFO or an alien. If you comment with a UFO or alien, I'll know that you watched this part of the pattern, which not a lot of people do. All right, so that's going to be the end of round 23. Now, before I continue on to round 24, we do want to stuff it a bit right now. It's just a little easier to start stuffing it now than later on. So let's go ahead and grab some stuffing. You will need a decent amount of stuffing for this pattern. Yeah, so we're just going to grab a bit of this, and we're just going to stuff it all the way in. So I'll pull my stitch marker out, my yarn out for a bit. I'm just going to go ahead and just get as much stuffing as we can right now, but not so much that it impedes our crochet. So I don't want it to become difficult to crochet. I just want it to be a little easier to stuff it up now. We're going to push the rest of these extra threads in there too, that we didn't use in our pattern. And maybe just a little bit more stuffing should be good. Okay. So in the pattern, I say stuff mostly. So you don't need to stuff it fully yet. We still have a few more rounds of decreasing, and then we can fully stuff it up. But it's just a little bit easier to stuff it a bit right now. Okay, let's pull our stitch marker up, and now we can continue on to round 24. Now round 24 is another round of decreasing. We're going to do 2 single crochets now, 1 and 2, and then our invisible decrease, where we go front loop and single crochet. And then we'll repeat that 6 times around. This is going to bring your stitch count back down again from 24 stitches down to 18 stitches around. So it's really starting to get smaller and smaller. And you kind of see we're aiming to get it all the way back down to 6 stitches around, and then we're going to sew it closed. That's usually how I like to do my patterns, is I like to make them come back down to 6 stitches and then sew it closed. So yeah, so there's 1 and 2, and then our invisible decrease. And I really hope I'm not going too quick. If I am going too quick in any part of this pattern, please consider checking out our Discord channel and asking for help, or joining my live crochet alongs, where I can let you know specifically how to do different parts of the pattern as we go. Now, another thing is, well, I forgot what I was going to say, but whatever. We're at the end of our round now. We're going to do one last decrease, and that's going to be the end of round 24. Pull our stitch marker up and continue on to round 25. For round 25, we're going to do a single crochet into our first stitch, just 1 single crochet, and then 1 invisible decrease, 1 and 2, and single crochet, just like that. So 1 single crochet, 1 invisible decrease, 6 times around, just repeated all the way around. This is going to bring your stitch count down from 18 back down to 12. So we're getting way smaller now. And after this round is going to be the last bit of stuffing, where we're going to want to stuff it as much as possible before we do one last round and sew it closed. So again, that's just 1 single crochet, 1 invisible decrease, 6 times around to go down to 12 stitches around. And we're almost done right here. So there's 1 more single crochet and then 1 invisible decrease. Boop, boop, just like that. All right, before I do my very last round, let's go ahead and stuff it any more that you want. I do like to stuff it quite a bit. I'll tell you, the technique is that you want to stuff it enough so that when you squish it, it kind of has a squish to it, but it doesn't hold its shape. So notice how when I squished there, it kind of created a dent in. You want to add enough stuffing so that doesn't happen and that it kind of squishes back out. Yeah, you don't need to like overdo it. That actually is really important. You do not want to overdo it, because if you add too much stuffing, you're going to start to see your stuffing through your stitches. But if you add too little stuffing, you're going to have it be a little looking deflated. And you don't want a deflated sun, that's for sure. So you just want to add enough stuffing so that it's got kind of a bit of a squish to it, but it kind of pushes back into its position. This is still a little flat. You can kind of see how I can like pinch it together like that. That means it's a little too flat. So we'll add a little bit more stuffing, because this is going to be our pretty much our last opportunity. You can add more stuffing at the after one more round if you want to, but it's a little bit more difficult. You're going to want to use a pencil to add stuffing in any rounds a round after this, but this round you can still do it with your fingers. So that's why I kind of say stuff it as much as you can right now to stuff it fully. So this should be the rest of our stuffing. I don't think I'm going to need any more than this. Let's see. Yeah, it's got a nice dense squish. It's kind of heavier now. It's got a nice shape to it. Kind of see how that face is coming about. You know what? I'll add just a little bit. You see how there's like a little open gap right in the back right here? So maybe we'll just add a slight amount more stuffing just to fill up that back part. Just a little bit more stuffing. There we go. All right. That should be good. And you kind of see, you don't have to see your stuffing through your piece, but it's still got enough to hold its shape. And it's got a lot more of a dense feeling to it. Let's go ahead and clean our workstation a little bit as well. And we'll continue on to our last round in our piece, which is going to be round 26. Get our crochet hook in there. Now I'm not going to pull my stitch marker up because I want the stitch marker on the outside, because I want to be able to pull it out of this entire piece so we don't have to see it in our piece. You know, we don't have to like try to pull it out. So we want to keep it on the outside. So I'm not going to pull our stitch marker up, but this round we just need to do an invisible decrease into every stitch around. Now the easiest way to do this in this round, it's kind of hard to do. I like to kind of hold it like this and then get my crochet hook into those front loops only, because at this point it's kind of hard to get your finger into the piece. So once you get into those front loops, we'll do a single crochet to do our invisible decrease. So there's one, here's our second one. Again, you just want to do an invisible decrease all the way around. You're going to have 6 invisible decreases total. So it's 1, 2, and then invisible decrease. Okay, we're almost done here. 1 and 2, single crochet, like that. All right, very last invisible decrease, 1 and 2, and then we'll single crochet into that. All right, now we can cut the yarn. You don't need a very long end. This is just going to be to sew it closed. So you just need maybe about that long. That even is maybe a little longer than you need, but you know, it's not going to hurt. Okay, and then before we even sew it closed, you want to see if you want any more stuffing. It looks like maybe we want just a tiny itty bitty bit more, and it's a good opportunity for me to show you how to stuff it with a pencil if you'd like to. So you just want to grab a little bit more stuffing, just a little bit. Like really, I think that honestly this might even just be enough. And then I like to take the eraser end of a pencil to help kind of guide the stuffing into your piece like this. Okay, and I'm not going to like really shove the stuffing in there because I want it right here at the edge of our piece. So we don't need to really push it in too much further than that. Okay, now we can sew it closed, but before I even do that, let's go ahead and pull all of our stitch markers out. It's kind of easier to pull the stitch markers out just a couple of stitches at a time, and then we can pull it out all the way. So just a few stitches at a time to get started, like that. And then, well, maybe we'll do a few more. These two. The only reason that I do it a little bit at a time like this is because if you pull it all the way out in one piece, you can kind of get gaps in between your stitches and then you have to kind of fix it up. So to prevent that, I like to get it as close as I can right there, and then we pull it straight out like that. Okay. Now we're just going to sew it closed. To sew closed, we want to thread the tail end here on our needle. And we're just going to go into the front loops only of all the stitches around. So just this one closest to you right here is going to be your front loop. So we're going to go under all these front loops. So there's 1, 2, oops, I lost my yarn. There's 3. Let's thread that back on. Here's going to be our 4th, 5th. Notice how I pull it off to the side like that too. Helps me make sure that I'm working into those. Once you're under all those front loops, I like to hold it right here and then pull it closed like that, and it'll close that end up really tight. Then we're going to take our tail end, go back into the very center, and then out pretty much anywhere you want on the side. It doesn't really matter too much. Just like that's probably fine. Pull it nice and tight. Squish it so that everything is in a ball shape. And then we're just going to cut this nice and close like that. All right, and that's going to be the end of the front and the back of your piece. And yeah, it looks pretty cute, right? But as you can tell, it's missing something pretty important, which is the edge around the outside. So now we want to make the corona. For the corona, all we need to do is grab our red yarn. We're going to start by making a slip knot in our red yarn. To make a slip knot, we're going to take the tail end here and fold it over itself to create a loop like this. You want a somewhat long end, not too bad, but just about that long is fine. Then we're going to pinch that loop at its connection point right here and fold it over the end attached to the ball of yarn, like so. Then from the inside of the loop, we want to grab that connection, grab our tail end with our index and thumb, and pinch it and pull it closed like this. This is going to create a little loop where when you pull this tail end here, if I pull it right here, you'll notice that nothing comes, it doesn't tighten up. But if I pull this other tail end, it'll start to tighten the magic loop up. That is the trick of the magic, or of doing the slip knot. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take our crochet hook and we're going to find the first unused front loop only from round 13. That's going to be one of these stitches along the edge here. So you kind of see how there's a little bit of a difference here as you look at the top. These are going to be these unused front loops only all the way around right here. So we're going to work into these front loops only as we go around to create a corona kind of points. Here's what it's going to look like by the end of our piece. We're going to do this by doing a variety of stitches, including our single crochets, which is the one that we've been using for this entire piece, but we're also going to use different stitches. We're going to use a half double crochet. Don't worry, I'll explain what each of these stitches are. But we're going to do something called a half double crochet and double crochet stitches with mini picot stitches in between. A mini picot just means that we're going to chain 2 and slip stitch into the back bump of the first chain made. But don't worry, we're going to take this one stitch at a time. It's going to be pretty easy to do. All right, so what we want to first do though is find that very first unused front loop only from round 13. So we're going to go around, find that first unused front loop only. You kind of see how there's like a bit of a jog here at the bottom of our smile. It's a little bit off center, you know, a little bit off to the bottom right because of how we sewed on the face, but it's going to be this stitch right here. So you kind of see how it's a little off center there, but it's the first one that's in the jog right there. So I'm going to go under that first front loop only and place our crochet hook into that first unused front loop only. Once we have under there, we're going to grab our loop that we made, yarn over onto the crochet hook, and then we're going to pull the end attached to the ball to tighten it around our crochet hook. Now we can pull this through that front loop only like this. Try to keep the knot there though, and now yarn over with the end attached to the ball. Oops, we'll go ahead and fix that. Yarn over the end attached to the ball and pull through the loop on your crochet hook to create a chain. Now I'm going to pull this back through just like that to make sure that the knot is on the inside. We're going to hide this at the end of our piece, by the way, so don't worry too much about how it looks. All right, so for our corona, for the red part of our corona, we're going to do a single crochet into our first stitch, then a half double crochet into our next stitch. After doing that, we're going to do 2 double crochets into the 3rd stitch, but in between the 2 double crochets, we're going to do a mini picot. And then after that, we're going to do 1 more half double crochet into the stitch after, and then do that repeat all the way around. Now I know that was a lot to say, but don't worry, I'll take it 1 stitch at a time. We're going to start into the very first stitch that you worked into. So work into that same stitch that you just pulled that loop through. So we're going to go into that same exact stitch that you pulled through right here. We're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it through that stitch. Then we're going to yarn over again and pull through 2 loops to create our first single crochet. Don't worry too much about this knot. We're going to hide this at the very end. And you don't need to work around this tail end either. We're going to worry about that at the very end as well. Okay, so there's our first single crochet. We wanted to work that first one into that same unused front loop only. Into the next stitch right here, we're going to do our half double crochet. For a half double crochet, I know it's a really weird name for a stitch, but it's actually not too tough. All you need to do is yarn over the crochet hook before you go into the stitch. Now we're going to go into the first unused front loop only right here, like that. Then yarn over again and pull it under that front loop only like so. Now you should have 3 loops on the hook. Once you do that, we want to yarn over again and pull it through all 3 loops on the hook simultaneously. The easiest way to do that is to twist the crochet hook to line it up with the holes and then really scoop it under. And I actually like to take it just a few stitches or a few loops at a time. That's going to be a half double crochet. Don't worry, we're going to do another one of those in just a second. So I'll show you how to do that again. Into the next stitch, we want to do 2 double crochets with a mini picot in between. To do that, we're going to yarn over, just like how we did our half double crochet, and then go into the next stitch right here. Again, we're only working into that front loop only. Then we're going to yarn over again, pull through that stitch, and now you should have 3 stitches on the hook yet again. Now we want to yarn over and pull through only 2 loops, not all 3, but just 2 for a double crochet. We want to line up the crochet hook and pull through only 2 of those loops. Now you should have 2 more loops on the hook. To finish up a double crochet, we're going to yarn over again and pull through our final 2 loops to finish up our first double crochet. After that first double crochet, we want to do a mini picot. For a mini picot, it's just going to create a little point at the end. All you need to do is chain 2, so we'll yarn over and pull it through the crochet hook 1 and 2 like that. Into the back of the second chain from the hook, the first chain that we made right here, there's going to be different parts of this chain. We have the top right here, the bottom of the chain is going to be right here, and then the back is actually along the back side right here. For this next stitch, we want to work into this back of this loop and do a slip stitch, which simply means putting our crochet hook in there and pulling a loop through and then pulling it through the loop on the hook. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's get our yarn a little bit more. All right, so we're going to go into that first back bump. That's going to be right here. It can be kind of hard to get your crochet hook in there. What I like to do is place a crochet hook right into position and then use my nail to help guide the loop over the hook. And then we're going to yarn over, pull it through that loop, and then through the loop on the hook like that. And that's going to create what we call a mini picot. All right, now after doing that mini picot, we want to do 1 more double crochet into the same exact stitch that you just made. So let's do another double crochet. We're going to yarn over, go into that same exact stitch right here, yarn over and pull it through. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through just 2 loops for our first double crochet, so 1 and 2. And then we're going to yarn over again and pull through our last 2 loops, 1 and 2, to finish up that second double crochet into the same stitch. See how they're kind of both going out of that same stitch? Okay, after doing that, we want to do another half double crochet into the next stitch. So for another half double crochet, we'll yarn over, go into the next stitch over right here, yarn over again and pull it through, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, 1, 2, and 3 like that. Okay, that's going to be the basic repeat. 1 single crochet, 1 half double, 1 double mini picot, and another double in the same stitch, and then 1 more half double crochet. Repeated all the way around the entire piece. This is going to end up with 60 stitches, but more importantly, it's going to end up with 12 of these points all the way along the edge. Let's go ahead and do our second repeat of that. So we're going to go into the next stitch over. After this half double, we're going to do a single crochet in the first right here. So there's 1 single crochet. Then we're going to do a half double crochet by yarning over, going into the next stitch, yarning over again and pulling through, then yarn over and pull through all 3. 1, 2, and 3. And into this next stitch, we're going to do those 2 double crochets with a mini picot between. We're going to start with our first double crochet by yarning over, going into the next stitch, yarn over and pull it through, then yarn over and pull through 2. 1 and 2, yarn over again and pull through another 2. 1 and 2 for our first double crochet there. Then our mini picot, we chain 2, 1 and 2. We skip that first chain, get into the back loop of the second chain from the hook. That's going to be back here. You kind of see if you push the chain to the side like this, it'll kind of reveal itself right here into that back loop only. And then yarn over, pull it through, and then through the loop on the hook to create a point. Then we're going to do another double crochet into the same stitch. So we yarn over, go into that same exact stitch, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over, pull through 2, 1 and 2, yarn over and pull through 2, 1 and 2. And then finally for this repeat, we yarn over and we do one more half double crochet into the next stitch right here. Yarn over, pull through, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. 1, 2, and 3, like that. Okay, and that's going to be the repeat all the way around. We've done 2 of those repeats. We end up doing 12 repeats total. So all the way around till we get to the end of this piece. I'm going to keep doing these repeats, and when I come to the end here, I'm going to show you how to finish this piece up and then how to get started on the second row of this corona to make a yellow band on the outside edge around the red. Okay, so we're going to keep doing that repeat. I'm going to get started on my third, and I'll be back in just a moment as I do our 12 repeats of 1 single crochet, 1 half double crochet, a double crochet into the next after that half double, a mini picot by doing 2 chains, 1 and 2, and slip stitching into that first chain made, working into that back loop, another double crochet into the same stitch, 1 and 2, and then finally one more half double crochet into the next stitch to continue that round around. All right, I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, this is going to be the very last half double crochet made. The last thing we want to do to finish up this corona is we want to finish up the whole piece, and then we want to hide these 2 ends in. So the first thing is we're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we made. So we want to find that first single crochet. It's really easiest to look for the V at the along the edge there. Just get your crochet hook into both loops of that first single crochet, yarn over, pull it through that stitch and then through the loop on the hook to create a slip stitch. Now we can cut the yarn. You don't need too long of an end. I would say about that long is probably fine, and pull it all the way through. We then want to create a hidden end with this and hide both of these tail ends into the piece. The first part is, let's hide this tail end first. The easiest way to do that, thread it onto a needle, like this. And then we're going to go through the stitch closest to it. So right here into the body of our sun, and then out somewhere along the edge on the back part right here. It doesn't really matter how far away it is. You don't need to be too far, but just about right here is fine. And just pull that all the way through. You want to try to get that knot into the inside of your piece to really hide where that end is, just like that. Now we can take this other tail end, thread it onto our needle, and we're going to create something called a hidden end. To do that, we're going to take this needle, we're going to go into the next stitch along. So this is the single crochet that we worked into. We want to go into this next stitch right here and come in through the back of that stitch like this, going under both loops. So under both of those loops there. And then we want to come out and back into where this tail end here is coming out of. So right into both loops, or into right here, back into the stitch. Okay, our goal is to make this mimic the top of the other stitches. Once you get the needle started into that, then you can kind of work your way down, work your way down into the body of the piece and back out through where that other tail end is, like this, just like that. And we're going to pull this very gently as we go, because you don't want to pull it too tight. We want to kind of mimic the top of these stitches. So I'm going to kind of like pull this out right here, Okay, so these are the 2 loops there, and when we pull this tail end, you should notice that it kind of pulls tighter and hides the end so that it looks like the rest of those ends there. It's harder to see where we begin and end. Okay, now once you have it pulled through both of those, we can double knot both of these ends. You do not need to double knot these very tightly. That's probably just fine. We'll do a second double knot, like that. Then we can cut it really close right here along the edge, and then use the back of your needle or the edge of the tip of a pencil and just stuff this knot back into your piece like so. Okay, so that's going to be the first part of our corona. I always like to kind of pull these out a little bit and kind of push them back a little so that it looks a little bit more pointy. And you should have 12 points around, just like that. And that looks pretty good, not gonna lie, but now we wanna add another layer of a corona on the back in yellow so that it pokes just little points through the edge right here. So we're basically gonna do the exact same thing in yellow using this other round of back loops only. However, we wanna offset it so that the points go into different places. So here you kind of see on our finished piece here, see how these points are in between each one? That's because we've offset it. So to do that, we're gonna start by creating a slip knot using our yellow yarn. So grab our yellow yarn, we're gonna do a slip knot just like how we did on our first one. So we're just gonna create a quick little slip knot just like that. Okay, now what we wanna do is find the back of our piece, find the end of the round, that's gonna be right here. You can notice where the jog is. And we wanna start in the 3rd stitch. So we wanna skip a couple and start in the 3rd stitch over to offset the points. So here's our first one right here. You can kind of tell because that's where the jog is. So that's gonna be 1, 2, and 3. So this is gonna be our 3rd stitch over. Get our crochet hook into that 3rd stitch. Pull this end through just like that. And we're gonna do the exact same thing where we do a chain into our first, like that. We do a single crochet starting into the same one. We're gonna do that same repeat all the way around, but in yellow. So we're gonna start in the same unused front loop right here. And we're gonna do a single crochet into our first and just do the same repeat. So there's a single crochet in the first, half double crochet into the next, and then double crochet, mini picot, double crochet into the 3rd. So yarn over. Here's our first double crochet. And then our mini picot is going to be a chain 2, 1 and 2, and then slip stitch into the back loop. Now there is one other thing that I want to do in this pattern, and I'll show you in a second. We're going to do another double crochet into that same stitch, just like we did before, and then 1 half double crochet into the next stitch right here. Now here is another thing that is different, but it's not like completely important. You can kind of see how it's a point is like pointing out through the next stitch right there. The next thing I like to do is not a necessity, but it does make things a little bit cleaner. So basically what we're gonna do here is because we're doing this, we're gonna have a little gap in between. And what I found is these stitches, these kind of loops can kind of get a little messy, kind of like loop around like that. So I did find a little trick that makes it so that these 2 layers kind of hold together and pull and stay together. So here, let me show you on the top of our piece here. See how they're like really stuck together like that? And if you pull them apart, you can kind of see why that is. We've kind of got it sewn together a little bit as we go. And I didn't actually sew it together, but instead I crocheted into the back of the double crochet from our first round. So basically what you want to do, if you'd like to do that, you don't need to do that, but it does kind of make it a little cleaner. All you need to do is before you start this repeat and do our first single crochet, what you want to do before you go into the next front loop only is you want to go into the back of these stitches right here. So notice how this double crochet is kind of like lined up right here, this bottom part. You just want to go into one of these little loops. You can go to multiples if you want to, but really you just need one, just like that. And then after you work into that one, then you can work into that next front loop and do a single crochet and make sure to pull under both of those. Actually, notice this. See how I split that yarn? We want to undo that real quick. You don't want to split your yarn. So make sure you're under both of those just like that. And then into that front loop and then do a single crochet, pulling under both of those simultaneously and then pull through 2 like that. And this is just going to help hold everything together. And we're going to do that at the start of all these repeats. So that's going to be the first single crochet done, and then we can continue the repeat as normal. 1 half double crochet into the next, and then a double crochet mini picot, double crochet into the third. So there's 1, then we'll chain 2, 1, 2, if I can, there we go, and then a slip stitch into the back of that first one. There we go, just like that, and then another double crochet into that stitch like normal, and then one more stitch for this repeat. It's going to be a half double into the next one, and I'm just going to show you the start of that repeat one more time. Again, you want to go into the back of the double crochet that's lined up, so it's going to be right here. Get under 1 or 2 of these loops. It can be kind of difficult to find your way into that stitch, but sometimes you just want to use your nail. Just get under that first stitch right there, and then under the next front loop only, and then do our single crochet under both, like so. And you can see it doesn't mess up the front of the stitch at all, but it does keep everything just held together a little bit cleaner so that nothing like kind of falls apart. Okay, now I'm going to keep doing this repeat all the way around till we get to the end of our round, and I'm going to show you how to cover this jog when we get to it. Basically, this part right here is going to be a single crochet, I believe, or maybe that's going to be their single crochet, and then we're going to do our half double, double right here, and then a half double. So we're kind of like skipping that jog up, you see? And then we're going to finish up here normally and then close it up just like we did before. And then we're going to finish up by making sunglasses. But before we even get to that, I need to do this repeat a bunch of times just to get to the end of the round. So I'll go ahead and do this repeat, and I'll be back in just a moment, and I'll show you how to finish this corona up and then make some sunglasses for our sun. Okay, I only have one more repeat left, and I just wanted to show you this last repeat just so you can see how the jogging works here between this round and how to close it up. So first off, I'm going to start my last repeat by single crocheting into the back of this double crochet across 2. So I'm just going to get my crochet hook under that first loop like that. There we go. It'd be a little hard to do, but it's all good. Then into our next front loop only and do a single crochet to start off our repeat. Then a half double crochet in the next stitch. And now you kind of see how there's no more stitches here, but there are more up here. So you just want to jog up to this next one right here, and that's where we're going to do our double crochet, mini picot double crochet. So we're going to go into this next stitch, yarn over, jog all the way up to this stitch here, and do our repeat, or continue our repeat with a double crochet, mini picot by chaining 2 and working into that first back loop only, right there. Pull it a little tighter, slip stitch, and then one more double crochet into the same stitch. There we go. And then finally, one last half double crochet into our next stitch right here. There we go. And then we're just going to finish up the same way as we finished on the last part by doing a slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made. Cutting the yarn, you don't need a very long end. Just like that's probably fine, and pull it through. And now we're going to do the same hidden end that we did before. So we're going to thread our first tail end here, and then go into the most close adjacent stitch, and then out through a stitch close to that, and pull it through to get that knot pulled in. And then we're going to do that hidden end method again by threading this end onto our needle, going into the back of the next stitch made, which is going to be the half double crochet right here, just like that, and then into the same place where this end is coming out of, so right here, and then into the back of a few of these, and then into that same back stitch, and out through where this other tail end is for double knotting, just like that. Okay, we're just going to double knot these two ends together. Not too tight, just 1 and 2. Cut the yarn nice and close and use the back of our needle to stuff that in. Okay, so that's going to be the sun itself made. I always like to kind of like pinch the coronas together like this so that they look all good. And there is our sunshine. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. And all the lines line up really well. I love it. Okay, now the last thing I want to add is some sunglasses. Now, obviously, this is not as necessary to finish your piece up, but it does look really nice, a nice little addition to it. Now, I will say these sunglasses are a little bit more difficult than beginner. I would say these are maybe not advanced, but more like medium difficulty, intermediate, if you will. That being said, I will take it one stitch at a time and we'll go very, very slowly. Okay, the first thing you want to do is grab some black yarn. Now, simply for the purpose of this video and so that you can see the stitches a little bit more clear, we're going to use red yarn in replace of our black yarn. But I'm going to make a second one of these in black so that you can kind of see how it looks finished up. But it's just a little easier to see the red yarn in the video tutorial itself. So we're going to start by making a slip knot, having a somewhat long tail end. You don't need it too long. About this should be good. So normally I'd be using black, but I just realized that it just doesn't come up on the video tutorial very well. So I really want you to see how the stitches work. Okay, so once we make a slip knot and get it onto our crochet hook, we're going to start by chaining 17 times. So yarn over and pull it through. We want to chain 17. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 chains. So it should be about like that. Now we're going to skip that first chain we made, and remember how we worked into the back loops of the chains for the mini picots? That's basically what we're going to do. We're going to skip that first chain, and we're going to work into the back bumps of all the chains across and slip stitch all the way down. So we're going to skip that first one and go into the back bump. So notice how I turn it slightly to find that back bump. We'll find this first one right here. We're just going to slip stitch into that back bump like that. Again, a slip stitch is just going into the stitch. I'm going to go into the next back bump right here. Yarn over, pull it through the back bump and through the loop on the crochet hook like that. So there's 1, 2, and we want to do that all the way across. There should be 16 across. So there's 3. We're just going to take it nice and slow all the way across our piece into these back bumps. Okay, one more right here, back bump, and you'll notice how, there you go, there's our 16th slip stitch. Notice how it kind of twists around and makes it all curvy like that. All you need to do is just straighten it out by pulling it nice and tight like that, and it should straighten out pretty well. Okay, so that's going to be the end of, I guess, kind of like the end of row 1. That being said, we're going to turn kind of now and work into the same stitches. So what you want to do now is when you get to the end, turn it 180 degrees so that the top of it is like that. We're going to pull this tail end over to the side. We want to keep this tail end on this side because we're going to use it to sew it onto a face later on. Okay, now into the next round, we're going to be working into the top loops of the chains, which means these loops furthest away from us right here like that. You can work under both of these loops simultaneously like you would a normal single crochet. That totally works as well. I've just kind of found that if I work into this top loop instead of both loops, it kind of creates a little line along the edge, which just kind of clarifies the top of the glasses. Okay, but you can work under both loops if you want to. I'm just going to work under this top loop. So we're going to skip where this knot is and start into that first top loop only. We're going to do the following stitches. It's going to be very, yeah, there's just going to be a lot of different stitches, including something called a triple crochet, which I'll show you when we get to that. Okay, so we're going to start into that first one. We're going to do 2 slip stitches into the first 2 top loops. So into this first one right here. Okay, make sure this knot is out of your way a little bit. And we're going to yarn over, pull it through that stitch and through the loop on the hook for our first slip stitch. So there's 1, and here's the next one. It's going to be 2 slip stitches. So we're going to start with 2 slip stitches. Then we're going to do this, it's kind of a repeat. It's not really a repeat. We're basically making the top of the glasses now. To do that, we're going to start by chaining 1. So yarn over and pull it through. Then we're going to do a double crochet into the next stitch. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, which again is going to be the top loop right here. Yarn over again and pull it through the stitch. Then yarn over and pull through 2 loops, 1 and 2. Yarn over again and pull through another 2, 1 and 2, like that. Then we're going to do a triple crochet into the third one. For a triple crochet, we're going to yarn over 2 times. So yarn over once, yarn over twice, just like that. We should have 3 loops on the hook now. Then go into the next stitch right here, yarn over, pull it through that stitch, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 over and over until we finish the stitch up. So yarn over, pull through 2, 1 and 2, yarn over again and pull through 2, 1 and 2, and then one more of those, yarn over and pull through 2, 1 and 2. And that's going to be a triple crochet. We want to do 2 triple crochets in a row, so we're going to do another triple crochet into the next stitch. So yarn over 2 times, 1 and 2, then go into the stitch, the next stitch, which is going to be right here, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, 1, 2, yarn over, pull through 2, 1, 2, and then one more time, yarn over, pull through 2, 1, and 2. We're going to do one more double crochet into the next stitch. So a double crochet is just 1 yarn over, go into the next stitch right here, yarn over and pull it through, yarn over, pull through 2, 1, and 2, yarn over, pull through 2, 1, and 2. Okay, now we want to chain just 1 time. So we yarn over and chain 1. Okay, and then into the next 4 stitches, we want to do a slip stitch. So we're going to go into the next stitch over right here and do a slip stitch. Yarn over and pull it through, and then through the loop on the hook like that. And see how it kind of like pulls it in, and that's going to be one of the glasses a little bit. So that's going to be the first slip stitch. We want 4 slip stitches. So there's 1. Here's our second one right here. 2. Here's our third. 3. And our fourth. 4. So there's 4 slip stitches in a row. Now we're going to do another one of these glasses, these lenses over here. So we're going to do that same thing that we did before. Again, that is going to be chain 1. And then into the next stitch, we're going to double crochet 1. So yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then we're going to do 2 triple crochets. Again, a triple crochet, we yarn over twice. We go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull it through. And then yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Okay, there's our first triple crochet. We want to do 2 of those, so we yarn over twice, go into the next stitch right here. We're going to do it again. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. After that triple crochet, we want to do another double crochet into the next stitch. So we yarn over 1 time, we go into that next stitch here, yarn over and pull it through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to finish up by doing a slip stitch into the last 2 stitches. So we're going to start with our first slip stitch here, yarn over, pull through, and pull it through the loop on the hook. That's going to pull it in to finish up our second lens there. And then one more slip stitch into the last stitch, which can be hard to see. It's easiest if you like pull it to the side like this, but right here is going to be our last slip stitch. Pull through and pull through like that. Okay, now we just need to cut the yarn. You want a somewhat long end because we're going to sew it onto the piece. I would go maybe about like that long is probably fine. Cut it, pull it all the way through, and then we're going to hide this end into the end of where that slip stitch is. So we're going to thread this onto a needle, and we're going to hide this into that end. So we're just going to go into the end of that first slip stitch made right here, pull it all the way through like that. And then there is our glasses. I always like to pull it so that the top is straight, kind of like this. But you can kind of see how that's going to create these cool sunglasses. All right, so now we want to sew these sunglasses onto the face. Now I'm just going to go ahead and sew these, the red ones on because, you know, I'm going to. But normally I would make these in black because it looks a little bit cooler in black. You know, that's how how sunglasses work. But these red one looks pretty cool too. All right, so to add these on, I'm just going to place them over the eyes, just like this, and hold them into position. We've got our first end held right here, and we're going to go through a stitch near where that end is coming out. So basically like right here looks pretty fine, just like that. We're going to go all the way over with our needle and come out through where the center is right here. We're just going to go through the center of a stitch right here, close to it. Okay, just nice and close to it. And pull that through. You want to pull it somewhat tight just so that it holds onto our piece. And then we're going to go out through the stitches on the middle, like right here. Just a stitch nice and close. That's probably fine. just like that, and then go across to the next stitch over, and then down through the same stitch you came out of, or you can do the next stitch over. It doesn't really matter too much, just into one of these 2 stitches. Okay, now here's the tricky part. You're gonna pull this through another stitch over here, and we're gonna go through the back of our sun, all the way across to the back. You can come out through a stitch close here, but I found that if you do it through the back, it kind of holds it a little bit closer. So this part's a little tough. You wanna really squish it in like that and come out through the back of one of the stitches here along the outside, just like that. Okay, and we're gonna pull this all the way till that comes a little tighter. Doesn't need to be too tight. That's probably good, just like that. Okay, now we want to take this other tail end and we want to thread the other side in. Now I will say, if you wanted to, you could use that tail end there to sew the bottom of these sunglasses on a little bit as well, so that it's not as like, you can't like pull it out like this, and you can keep them on. But I kind of like that you can flip them up. I don't know why, I just think they're kind of cute flipped up. But you can sew the bottoms on as well if you'd like to. All right, we're going to thread this other end onto our needle, just like this. We're gonna go in through the stitch adjacent to where the end is if you like hold it down, which it looks like it's gonna be about right there. Looks pretty good. And then we're just gonna go all the way through and come out through where this other tail end is. So I really kind of like squish it in and find my way to where this other tail end is out, and then pull that tail end through like that. Okay. All right, now the last thing we want to do is just double knot these 2 ends on the inside and cut close. Now, you know what, I'll do it. We'll go ahead and we'll have a red sunglasses sun, because why not? We made it all. Go ahead and double knot this. We're going to pull it through like that. Pull it just tight enough. You don't need to pull it too tight, but just a little tighter is kind of nice. And then double knot that. We'll cut it nice and close right here. And if you pull tight enough, it actually just kind of hides its way in by just squishing like that. And it kind of hides its way into the piece anyhow. And there we go. I'm going to go ahead and pinch our corona again, just so that it is lays a little flatter. Looks pretty cool with red sunglasses too. I think I like it a little bit more with black sunglasses, but it's a little clearer and easy to see the stitches in red, which is why I went with red. But yeah, there's our sun. Look at how cute he is. Look at the back. Here it is from the side. And again from the front. Boop, boop, boop. Thank you so much for crocheting this pattern along with me. I hope you enjoyed making it as much as I enjoyed designing it. And this one was really fun to design. Like I said in the intro, this was a one and done. I crocheted it right the first time, which is very rare for a designer. I'm really proud of this pattern. I think it's super cool, relatively easy to make, and just like teaches you some really fun techniques. So I really hope you enjoyed making it as much as I enjoyed designing it. If you did, please like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to check out more of my space themed pattern, like our little UFO or rocket ships, or a few different mystery patterns that are coming out later in the season, you can find them all at clubcrochet.com/space. Thank you again so much for crocheting along with me. Pasta la pizza, happy hooking, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.